Beaumont, Texas. Is fighting crime optional? Let's get dialed in. So picture this. You wake up, stretch, grab your coffee, and step outside, only to find some degenerate has smashed your car window and stolen your last decent pair of sunglasses. You do what any normal, law-abiding citizen would do. You pick up the phone and call the cops. Well, ladies and gentlemen, according to a headline from local news put out yesterday, starting on February 17th, the police in Beaumont, Texas, will no longer be responding to minor crimes. Minor crimes like theft, fraud, harassment, things that totally don't matter to the average person. Just kidding. These are the exact crimes that wreak havoc on everyday life. Now, why would they be doing this? Because according to the police chief, response times have ballooned to over 6 minutes. 6 whole minutes, which in a life-threatening situation, yes, that's an eternity. But here's the thing. How did we get here? How did police response times go from under 5 minutes just a few years ago to over 6? Could it be, I don't know, crime skyrocketing, policies that make policing harder, an erosion of law and order? So now, if your identity is stolen, your car is broken into, or some lunatic is harassing you, what happens? Well, according to the local news, you can log into the Police to Citizen portal and file a report that some fear might get totally ignored. Now, they say this will free up officer time and allow them to focus on real emergencies. But here's a thought. What happens if criminals are under the impression that theft, fraud, and harassment are now basically unenforced? Do you think they'll be less likely to commit crimes or more? I'll give you a hint. The answer is not less. Our view? We believe this is what happens when city governments stop prioritizing law and order, when crime becomes an afterthought, when citizens are told to just deal with it themselves. It's the death of accountability. And the criminals? Well, they know it. So here's a prediction. If you think 6-minute response times are bad now, just wait until criminals believe the police are literally not coming. And the saddest part of all, police officers put their lives on the line every day because they want to help people. They want to make their communities a better place. And now it appears their hands are being tied because of what we suspect is catastrophically poor mismanagement, not by them, but by some of our elected officials. Hold the phone, though. Is there more to this story, and have we been misled by local news headlines? Well, we at Texas Talkin decided to go straight to the source. We reached out to Beaumont PD this morning, and their public information officer joins us right after this quick break. Sit tight. America is getting our country back. Good things are happening, and we're loving that our president is taking bold action to get our country back on track. DOGE is cutting expenses to help turn things around. Make America Healthy Again is already seeing ingredients being banned and bringing awareness to vaccines. We, the people, need to continue to buy USA made to support our USA economy and jobs, not foreign countries. We, the people, need to stay on track and vote with our shopping dollars and stay away from global mega corporations, including 11 manufacturing companies that control, get this, 97% of the consumer goods market. We, the people, need to watch what we consume to stay healthy and keep away from toxins in our home. Patriot Switch found a USA manufacturer that has been making healthy products for 40 years, including clean pasture-raised beef. Learn more at switch2usa.store to be contacted for details. Again, switch the number 2 usa.store. That's .store, not .com. Switch to usa.store. And joining me now is the face of the Beaumont Police Department Public Information Officer, Haley Morrow. Haley, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thanks for coming on and helping us plug the airwaves tonight with a hot story that I want to ask you about. And that is a headline that I saw yesterday from 12 News that said, quote, starting February 17th, officers will no longer be dispatched for certain minor offenses, including minor assaults, auto burglaries, criminal mischief, forgery, and fraud. Now, there are a lot of upset and concerned citizens. Haley, was that headline misleading?
Well, unfortunately, sometimes the way you word things goes a long way in helping people understand. And a lot of people don't understand police response. And so this stemmed from our chief giving a presentation to city council about how we are not really changing, but really reinforcing the way that we deal with people who are calling in what we would call cold reports or information only reports. And so I think when people saw the list of crimes that this is going to involve, they immediately took that as, and of course it was interpreted through the news media as we weren't responding to those. And so that's not exactly accurate. And that's why sometimes we have to come out and clarify things. And so, of course, we spent most of today trying to do that. And for the most part, the feedback has been very positive. People, now that they understand the full context, understand that this is actually a positive thing for Beaumont. It's going to increase our goal is to increase our response time for those priority calls, meaning in progress, major crashes where people are injured, victim of a shooting, in progress assaults, and things like that.
So go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, police will continue to respond to any calls about a crime that is in progress. If anyone is in urgent danger or immediate danger, the police are not going to say, go ahead and call dispatch. They'll respond to those calls.
Yeah, no. So basically the way that I broke it down today, and if you saw my Facebook Live video that I did on my Facebook page, I kind of took each of those calls, those reports, the cold reports, and I broke them down into what would be considered a cold report and what would be considered an in-progress situation that we're going to respond to. So, for example, assault. If you were assaulted 2 days ago and it was a minor assault, what we would call a simple assault, and then today you decided you wanted to file charges, that is something that can be done over the phone. An officer coming out is strictly going to be gathering information. Whereas if you're being assaulted right now and you call 911, we're coming. That's a priority response. Auto burglary. You wake up at 7 a.m., your window's shattered, your car has been burglarized. That can be reported over the phone. And it's important to note that our ID technicians are still going to process crime scenes, and auto burglary is one where if your car is broken into, we have you bring your car down to the police station for it to be processed anyways. So there's really nothing else that's changing. When a cold report is done over the phone or online, that's still uploaded to our criminal investigations division and assigned to a detective for follow-up investigation. Literally nothing is changing except for those reports being done over the phone is going to free up our officers to be available, to be more visible in the community, and be able to respond to those priority calls when they happen. Because if you're in a life or death situation, 6 minutes is a long time to wait for a police officer to get there.
Yeah, it could be the difference between somebody living or dying in certain circumstances. That's an eternity. You mentioned response times, and the chief mentioned response times in that 12 News Now piece that I referenced earlier. Response times for Beaumont PD rose over the past year. What do you believe is the root cause for this increased response time?
Well, more calls for service is one of them. And also,
In other words, crime going up.
yeah, crime going up, but also there are calls for service that, again, shouldn't require a police officer to come take a report. But what I do want to put in a little perspective is our officers respond to an average of 140,000 calls for service each year here in Beaumont. So the number in 2023, our officers took 4,400 reports that could have been done over the phone or online because they were what we would consider cold report calls. Only 1,300 were done online. So that's about a little over 5,000 calls that we're talking about in the grand scheme of 140,000. So really, even though this seems like a major adjustment for people, it's really not. Only about 5,000 calls will have been affected by this in the grand scheme of 140,000. So it's really not a major change. I think that the way it was worded in the article, unfortunately, made people think that it was something that it wasn't. And so we just wanted to clarify that. If you need a police officer and you're in a life or death situation or something is going on right now and you call 911, we are coming. You are not on your own. This does not apply to burglaries. This does not apply to domestic violence situations, car crashes. There are so many things that are not even affected by this at all. This is strictly just keeping officers from going out and essentially doing the work that our amazing secretaries could do without tying up that important, obviously needed officer out on the street.
Haley, let me ask you this. Is the Beaumont Police Department adequately staffed in your view? And is it, the follow-up to that is it receiving all the resources and support that it needs from the city of Beaumont?
Well, I think that law enforcement in general across the country, in like many other careers, to be honest, has suffered with staffing issues. We are constantly hiring, and what's important for people to understand is it's a really long process. It's a long process to be hired. Every time we have vacancies, we start that hiring process, whether they need to go to the police academy or they're coming from another agency and they're already certified. It's still a long process to get through the academy, to get through training. By the time they're out on their own, it's been well over a year since they started that process. And since then, like always, we have retirements and, people who leave the career for whatever reason. So it's almost like a revolving door of, it's a long process. By the time we get through it, we've had people retire. And so it's just a battle that we're constantly fighting. But using new technology like our real-time crime center, pushing out more this online reporting, it's streamlining police work so that it does make our response times better and help our investigations go quicker. So we're seeing a lot of success in that respect. But of course, we're always hiring. We're always looking for people who are wanting to do a career in law enforcement. And of course, anybody who has questions about that can ask, and we'll let them know. But yeah, we want to make sure the public knows this is really not a change. It's something, it's been around for 15 years, our online reporting, and we're just pushing it more so that we can free up our officers. And one more thing I wanted to talk about, the city of Beaumont, the way that we have our patrol set up is we have 3 zones: the north end, the south end, and the west end. And in those 3 zones, per shift, we have 4 shifts, but per shift, we have about 4 officers assigned to each zone. Now, those shifts overlap at certain times of the day, so that number rises more than 4. But when we have officers tied up on what we would consider cold report calls, information gathering reports, we are limiting the ones that are available for those in progress calls. And so what'll happen and what drives up our response time is when we have all the officers in a zone tied up and then something else happens, we have to pull from another zone. Takes the officer longer to drive there. It leaves their zone uncovered by an officer. And so you can see how that can kind of exacerbate having a higher response time, and then of course not having officers close by whenever something major happens, because during some of our peak times, whenever people are getting off work, 5 o'clock, we have an increased number of crashes. So we have officers that are tied up on crashes, but then we still have our regular disturbance calls and those report calls that can be done online. Freeing them up will give officers more time to respond to what we would consider in progress.
And the bottom line is you need more people to apply to become police officers and get into the pipeline so that you can continue staffing the department with qualified members of the community to be police officers, right?
Absolutely. I mean, we're like most law enforcement agencies across the country. We need more people, and but there are standards there, and we can only put them so low before we can't.
Yeah, let's not get rid of those. We want those in place.
You want officers who are qualified and will, don't have a history of criminal history or drug use. I mean, those things are important. So, of course, we have standards. We're doing everything we can, trying to recruit and doing the best that we can in this age of policing. But yeah, this was just one of those instances where that wasn't exactly the way we wanted this to roll out, this messaging to roll out. But city council meetings are public meetings, and reporters are in there, and this it just wasn't clear. And so that's what today has been. Not, I wouldn't necessarily call it damage control, because hopefully there wasn't too much damage done, but there was a lot of speculation, and a lot of it is just people not understanding how.
Well, you see that headline, and I mean, you're really left to draw only one reasonable conclusion, which is why I think so many people were confused, frustrated, upset. And I want to thank you for responding to the comment that I tagged you in on Facebook for clarification, and then for coming on and talking about this, because unless people know what's actually going on, of course they're going to be confused.
Yeah, absolutely. And the term 911 call, like not responding to 911 calls, definitely was misleading. We absolutely are going to respond to 911 calls. And really, this is all going to hinge on our dispatch. Our dispatchers are the ones who receive, whether it's 911. And of course, we still need to do some PSAs about when you call 911 versus when you should call the non-emergency number. But a lot of people call 911 even when it's not an emergency.
Yeah.
But this is really going to affect our dispatch a lot, because they're going to be the ones who take that initial call and determine that, okay, this is a cold report. We need to forward you to our online service or teleserve, or you can come down to the police station Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 to file that report. So really, it's not, most people aren't even going to notice the change, because again, in the grand scheme of 140,000 calls for service, 5,000 being affected by just doing reporting online because it's just information is really not going to change what most people see. Hopefully what people see from this is that our response times increase.
Decrease.
That means, I'm sorry, decrease. Yes, decrease. We want to be there quicker.
Yes. So. And we want that too. And police officers put their lives on the line every day. We're very strong supporters of law enforcement on this show. So the final question I want to ask you tonight, Haley, is how can my viewers and the public who are watching this help our police officers in this community? And since we talked about it, if people want to apply to become a Beaumont police officer, how might they go about doing that?
Well, let me address the first thing. The Beaumont Police Department holds a Citizens Police Academy twice a year. We were already started for our January session, but we'll do it again in August. And that is such a great eye-opening experience. It's about a 13-14 week course on Thursday evenings at the police station. And we really open everyone's eyes to all aspects of law enforcement. And so it is great for people who are curious about the way things work and have questions. Maybe you're a supporter of law enforcement. You'll find it very intriguing. Maybe you're not really a supporter of law enforcement and you want to come figure us out, poke holes in our story. I don't know, but it is a fantastic course. I recommend it to everyone. It's completely free, 18 and up. You don't have to necessarily live in Beaumont, but if you're from this area and you're willing to make the drive, we'll absolutely have you. And you get to do some hands-on stuff towards the end of the Citizens Police Academy. You'll go through our Milo system, which is our shoot or don't shoot scenario, which is the big screen. And you get to be the police officer and see how you would handle the scenario. We have practicals out at our firearms range where that's like a real life scenario that you're the police officer and you get to shoot at the firearms range. And so it's a great way for people to be exposed to law enforcement. And
what about getting tased? Can people get tased if they want to see what that's like?
We don't do that. But that is part of training when you become a police officer. So if you're really wanting to go all in, then we are in a hiring process right now. So it's open until March the 30th. You can go to cityofbeaumontjobs.com. There's two.
I'm going to put that up on the screen. cityofbeaumontjobs.com.
Absolutely. There's two separate application processes. So one would be for police cadet. That means that you do not have a T-Cole peace officer's license. That means you need to go through the academy. This is hiring to put people through the August Academy. And then, of course, if you're already a certified officer, you would be applying as a police officer. We have a sign-on bonus up to $10,000. So it's $2,000 for every year of experience up to 5 years. So you could get a $10,000 bonus if you're coming from another agency. And we do lateral transfers, meaning you come in at the pay scale of how many years of experience you have, not on the seniority, but you'll go down to the bottom of seniority. But the pay scale is nice to be able to come into as a lateral transfer. So anyone who has questions about our hiring process, if they're interested in a career in law enforcement, or they're welcome to message me on Facebook. I'd be happy to get them set up with a recruiter. And yeah, we're always looking for a few good men or women that are willing to strap on the badge and come put their community service on the line there.
Amen. Haley, I think that our conversation tonight will help put a lot of people at ease and answer some unanswered questions that we had this morning. So I want to thank you for taking time to come on and visit with us.
Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am. May God bless you, and may God continue to bless the great state of Texas. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stay dialed in to interviews and content just like this by clicking that follow button on my Facebook page, or hit the subscribe button to learn more about exclusive access that you won't want to miss.